So your team is kicking butt all season long. Now you're just days away from the trade deadline. Do you want your general manager to add some help, or do you want him to leave the team alone and don't mess with chemistry? Coach, the Jets have the best record in the entire NHL. Should they be doing anything between now and the deadline?
You know what, Gino, it's a lot tougher question than you think, because, I mean, at one point you want to say, no, hey, we're doing good. Let's just leave it alone because chemistry is such an important thing. But if you end up losing in the first round like the Jets did last year, you're kicking yourself saying, why didn't we go out and get something? But with me, I would think that the Jets, all they need is some depth. They've got they're 4 lines deep, and their defense has been solid. They don't need to do much. They just got to prevent themselves from getting injuries to main players. So that's why I think a depth position player that can come in, that doesn't mind sitting out every now and then, but can come in and play a role, and the same thing on defense. I think that's the key to what the Jets should be doing.
And you're speaking from experience. You led teams to 8 different division titles over your career coaching in the NHL. Back in 2010, your Caps won the President's Trophy, and then you brought in 3 key pieces: Scott Walker, Eric Belanger, and Milan Ursina. How did that work out for you in retrospect?
Well, you know what? It didn't work out well. When you have 15 forwards that can play and 8 defensemen that can play, they all want to play. These guys were all known to be able to guys that were playing on regular spots. And we thought, hey, listen, you know, we're going to be having a long run, and we need the depth and not to miss anything. But I find that, I mean, all that does is bring unrest. Like, I mean, we had to sit out a couple times, like David Steckel and Matt Bradley, and those guys, they played regularly important roles in our team, and I think it upended our chemistry a bit. So, I mean, sometimes you have right intentions and you do the wrong things. The other time, in Minnesota, at this time of year, we were in the lead right at the trade deadline. We had the most points in the NHL. We went and we said we need one more player. So we went and got Martin Hanzal, and he got hurt in about the 3rd or 4th game that he played for us. We ended up losing 5 in a row and ended up not becoming the first place team in the division at that time, and it really hurt us. So it's a real crapshoot sometimes, and you got to have some luck, but you've got to get the right guys. I think if whoever makes trades, when they've got the better team, they better look to more than just whether it's a player. They got to look in the background, all of these things to make the chemistry stay the same, and upgrade your team a little bit, because everybody's got to play a little bit better in the playoffs than they did in the regular season.
What was going on in your room as you're a division leader, kicking butt at that point, like the Winnipeg Jets are doing right now, between now and the deadline? What was happening with your players in that room, and what were the conversations like between yourself and the GM going to the deadline?
Well, the conversations between me and the GM were always the same. What do we need? Is there anything we need? You know, how do we go about this to get a little bit better and not to screw up the chemistry? So those are those things. In the room, it's like when you're a first place team, you don't want to make a move at all. You don't want to lose one of your brothers in the room. I mean, because you guys have done so much so well, and you're so tight, and you believe right now that you've got the team that can beat anybody. The biggest problem is when it comes to playoffs, if you don't have that experience, you have to play at least 10% better in the playoffs than you did in the regular season to be able to compete. I think, and that's a big thing. So the GM and the coach, they gotta work together on finding out the perfect fit, because it's just not as easy as saying, hey, we need a player, let's go get this best player, we'll worry about the money and everything else. There's so many things that go into this, and to make the right decision, you've seen it in the past, teams, and it hasn't happened a lot, when they make the right decision and they win the cup, it really goes down that the trade deadline was an important thing.
I don't want to leave you on a sour note, but do you want to reflect with our viewers what happened to you in 2008 when you guys won the division that year and you did make a key trade at the deadline?
Oh, when in 2008 we were sitting there and we said, okay, we need something. We just I think our second line center isn't good enough. And I had mentioned that to George, and George was great. And I remember him coming down the hall, and he said, well, we just made a trade for a second line center. I hope he's good enough for you. His name is Sergei Fedorov. And I went, oh my, I think you've done your job. I mean, we already had 4 Russians on the team. This was a guy that was going to come in and really solidify everything we had. And he did. And it was great. And I mean, we ended up losing in the second round to Pittsburgh in 7 games, but we're all convinced in Washington at that time, we win game 7, we win the Stanley Cup. But Sergei was a big part of it, even if he was 38 or 39 years old at the time. It was a great get by George and the right fit for our team.
History tells us don't overthink things, because sometimes that can come back to bite you in the butt.